welcome back to General Geekery. Um, and with me, as always, is JD,
Hello.
who had a really good idea. If you're on social media, at specifically like Facebook, you've seen people post 10 days of pictures for things like your favorite book or your favorite music, your movies. But JD tagged me in one a couple of weeks ago that I really enjoyed participating in because it was kind of in the same line of the our favorite Real American Hero vehicle and figure podcasts that we did, and it was top 10, not necessarily top 10 toys, but 10 toys that you remember from your childhood. And since I didn't want them to be all GI Joe or all Star Wars, it to sit down and find different ones for every day, and it really kind of hit me how diverse it was, and it was really an interesting stroll down memory lane. So JD and I thought it might be a podcast if we review the 10 toys that we picked for this photo challenge.
Yeah, maybe share some memories of them that we didn't talk about in the post.
Absolutely. Like the first one that I picked, like basically defined who I am and like my career. And I'll be dropping pictures in with the podcast when I edit this, so you can see what we're talking about. But my first one that I picked is I have one. Hang on a sec. Let me go get it. I'm going to pause it here a second.
Okay. Oh, you actually have one. That's cool.
All right. So the first one that I picked, it looks like a lunchbox, but what it is a paramedic jump kit from the early 70s. This is not mine from childhood, and it's not complete, but it's still pretty cool. It's got a little biophone in it.
Ooh, a rotary dial, a pretend rotary dial phone. That's so retro.
Right? And the doctor checklist, and your oxygen here on one side, and it's got a list of what's on the back. It came with a stethoscope and a blood pressure cuff, and this one does still have the blood pressure cuff. It doesn't have the stethoscope. And then it's got defibrillator.
Is that a defibrillator? Nice. Nice.
You need to fix it, but it's got Velcro on it. So you can rub the pads on people, and you can set your joules here. It's got your lead kg monitor, and then power on and off. So yeah, I had one of these, and most people know I've been a paramedic for over 20 years now, and I have always wanted to be a paramedic since the age of 4. My mom told me that the day after I graduated paramedic school. So that was the first toy I picked as for this, because it's definitely probably one of the most influential and one of the first ones that I remember having.
So wait, you were playing with a pretend medical kit when you were 4, and then you ended up going into that field, and wow, dude, that is like profound. Like getting that toy was like your key to your destiny.
Well, I grew up watching Emergency, which was the TV show about paramedics in LA County.
Oh yeah, I've seen reruns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rescue 51. So that came out. That kit came out the time when Emergency was very popular on national TV. So because it's the unit number on the side is very close to the unit number that's on the TV show. It's only a couple digits off. So yeah, between watching Emergency and getting that toy as a kid, yeah, that pretty much defined my career.
That's so weird. Like, truly meant to be.
Yeah,
Um, pretty
you don't
cool.
see too many people that do that. You know, that's like, yeah, I've always known what I've wanted to be, and that's what I became.
Well, I've never known. Not only have I never known what I wanted to be when I grew up, I still don't. Still figuring that shit out. Now I've been with the same company for like 15 years, and probably not gonna, stop being with that company anytime soon. But it's definitely not what I want to be when I grow old at this point. Um,
That's okay.
but
What I want to do when I grow old either. So
um, but yeah, I mean it's cool because you don't often hear about somebody, yeah, getting a toy when they were a kid that reflected what they would end up doing. Like that is pretty cool. Um,
so
um,
I thought that would be a very good first choice.
that is a perfect first
like I said,
choice.
one of the first toys that I remember having as a kid, and certainly one of the most influential. So, what'd you pick for your first one, JD?
Hey, nobody's gonna see this coming. Oh, it was GI Joe.
No.
Uh, yeah, huh? Weird. It is lifelong passion of mine, and it is my father's fault. He bought me my rock and roll figure at the PX on Fort Benning, and that was all he wrote. In fact, before I went, before I left to go to the 2018 Joe convention, my dad stopped by the house and he said, "So I hear you're going to a GI Joe convention." He's like you just, he said you never did outgrow it. I'm like, this is your fault. This is entirely your fault. Um, so no, I all the way through my teenage years, I was not the kid that put all the toys away in favor of girls. No, for one, I was terrible at talking to them, and for two, I didn't give a shit. I didn't care even then. I figure if people came over to my house and they saw that I was 14 and 15 and buying toys, and if that bothered them, well, okay, say la vie. Um,
No,
I
I
have never,
had him well
I
into
have,
my teens.
huh?
I had him well into my teens as well. I think I spent more money on comic books, but still getting GI Joes at that point too.
Yeah, because in fact, I distinctly remember uh, when I turned 13, my dad took me to the store because, well, I mean, we were going to the store anyway. He had to get something, and I walked in, and most of the 1993 GI Joe line was on the shelves, and um, I ended up, I think, getting Leatherneck, and well, oh, I know what it was. I had birthday money, like it was
Okay.
because around the age of 12 or 13, you stop getting so many presents, and you get people
Pretty-
start giving you some presents, but then there's money because people don't know what to get you. Well, remember I had birthday money, and I think I ended up with the 1993 Leatherneck. I think it was Colonel Courage, and it was one of the uh, oh, there was a DEF figure. I think it was maybe it was Shockwave, but they were all there, and I got them, and I remember in '94 when the line was canceled, and I was 14, and I started seeing those things, and they're in the stores, or in like '95. Some of these little retailers still had stockpiled Joes because the line had ended the year before. I remember buying the '94 Lifeline, the Ice Cream Soldier, and two of the Star Brigade figures on one shopping trip to a tiny little retailer here called Odds and Ends, which no longer exists. But yeah, so GI Joe was always there. So my first choice. In fact, I couldn't even pick. I didn't want to pick a specific character or anything. I I think it was one of the images from the first toy catalogs that it came in, with where the figures were set up in like a diorama
Yeah, I
uh,
love
pose.
those. Seeing those.
Yeah, so I took that because I'm just like, well, it's it's part of the first year that GI Joe was back, but it kind of represented that's basically where it started. So, yeah, so GI Joe was the first and only choice to be the fourth. And in fact, I'm actually shocked that it didn't come in a few more times on the list because I don't know. It's always been there. That's why I think every time the line has drastically changed from one format to another, I think I've always supported it. Um, when the O-ring figures went away and the T-crotch figures came in, I didn't care. I bought them. When the line went away and made room for Sigma Six, dude, I bought the shit out of the Sigma Six for the first 2 years. And then it didn't. The tail end of the first year, I bought almost everything that came out, and after that, not so much. And within a couple years, it was gone. But I think there were a couple that I missed. But and then 25th anniversary starts. Now the 6-inch figure. So yeah, I'm gonna buy it. I just every time there's a trend change in the line, yeah, I just throw my support behind it, unless it's something that's truly
Wacky.
terrible. I yeah, GI Joe. It has always been a passion for me.
Yeah, no, that didn't surprise me that was your first choice at
In
all.
fact, you probably would have been surprised if it hadn't been.
I would have. Well, not necessarily. I would have felt that you were doing what I was doing, which was building up to it. So, while it is on my list, we'll come back to that because the next one that I chose was it's called the line was called Stompers. So we talked about monster trucks on the podcast with Grogan. So these were kind of like motorized monster trucks that were battery operated. You put a double A battery in there, you turn it on, and you just let it go. And they had all kinds of like different terrain sets that you could get. And the one that I specifically chose was one of the water demons, and it has big oversized tires and like little flappy paddles on the wheels on the tires, and it was supposed to it was supposedly watertight, and you could put it in like the bathtub or swimming pool and it would paddle around, and it did not do that very well. But I remember getting a Stomper set for Christmas one year and putting it all together and putting batteries in it and turning it on for the first time. And we had a little schnauzer named Suki, and those things were fantastic. She'd get big eyes and she'd just watch him go back and forth and she'd chase him, and it was good times for both of us. So I remember that being a very fun toy of my childhood that you just don't see a lot of those. With all the retro stuff going on, I'm surprised that you don't see a Stompers line actually.
I kind of am too, because that would be a big deal with like the kids in like my son's age range. That would be, well, and every kid likes trucks and Jeeps and all that, and yeah, because I remember when I saw the Stompers picture, I kept looking at it. I'm like, that looks familiar. Like it was not ringing a bell, and it was not like one of those things where I was like, oh, I think I had one of those. No, I don't think I did, but I do recognize them. So somebody somewhere along the way that I knew, like, one of the other army kids that I went to school with her, somebody had them. And I remember there being a gray one, and I think it had like a blue windshield on it. But
Yeah, I think one of the ones I had. It was like a great pickup truck.
Yeah. I did remember it. I don't think I ever had one. But yeah, that was
And the ones that like the regular ones, they had like conical wheel like hubcaps, so you could like set it on its side and it would drive on two wheels. And like I said, I'm kind of surprised there wasn't a retro line of those by somebody, because one of the guys that I grew up with, he's got 4 kids, and he said that he spent a lot of money on eBay getting some vintage ones for his little boy a number of years ago. So I
Oh,
think
so there's a secondary market for them, and they're not cheap. Oh, okay.
you can still get them on eBay. I think anything from the '80s, there's a niche collector's market for it. Um,
Oh, well, yeah, definitely.
yeah. So I remember him saying that he spent a lot of money getting some stompers for his little boy, just because they hadn't there had never been a I don't want to say resurgence, but there had never been a resurgence. They had never reintroduced the line.
Um, but it was just a toy line, right? Like there wasn't any media for it. It was
I don't
just
remember there being media for it. No,
okay.
but
Um,
I did some like Google image searches, and there was a whole bunch of tracks and different vehicles that I sure didn't even remember. So I mean, it was a pretty huge line. So what did you pick next then, JD?
um, my number two in the picture. There's a picture of me. God, I don't know. I gotta be like, I don't know, maybe I'm two. And there is this Snoopy, like a plastic Snoopy. I think it was a tub toy, honestly, but it's plastic. In this picture, it looks like it's wearing a red cape or something. I don't remember the cape. I just remember this Snoopy. And along with that, there was also there was a toy that I had, Snoopy's doghouse, and Snoopy was on the top of it, and then Woodstock was on like the chimney or something of it because, and it must have had some kind of feature in it where when you pushed Woodstock down, the toy must have done something else because my mother says that I was always pushing down out Woodstock, but I'd always vocalize it like she said, always be like, "Get down," and stay, and I'd try to keep it to stay down. I don't. I remember from the stories. I do remember having the toy. I do remember, especially the Snoopy I posted about. I definitely remember carrying it around a lot. I just don't. I was too young to really remember, so it's just the visuals. But I just think it's funny because to this day, one of my favorite Christmas specials is the Charlie Brown Christmas special. Snoopy and Woodstock for me. I mean, the Peanuts gang, I do like the characters, but for me, it was all about Snoopy and Woodstock. It's
Yeah.
it was just funny to me, like the way Snoopy talked when that weird alien language, and the fact that the Woodstocks didn't. He was just like sometimes they were antagonizing him, and sometimes they were friends. It's like a metaphor for life or something. So,
When
so yeah,
we saw that picture of you, she was like, "Oh my God, he's adorable."
yeah. What happened? Um, but yeah, in fact, in this picture, um, I've got a T-shirt on, and I only know what it's. Even though my arms are across it, I was looking through a box of pictures a couple weeks ago, and I found a bunch of pictures of me around the same age in the same shirt. It's a Honda advertisement T-shirt. There's like I think it's a pickup truck, and it says Honda across the top of it. The shirt's red with blue sleeves, and there are a ton of pictures of me wearing that same shirt. In like, there's pictures of me wearing that shirt in my grandparents' houses. There's pictures of us wearing in the apartment at Fort Benning where we were living at the time. So I don't know. I must have really liked that shirt or something for it to be in that many pictures. Yeah, I'm just looking at this picture, and yeah, that's Snoopy. Uh, Actually, what happened was when I found the box of pictures, I took the picture out and I photographed it for this
Yes.
because I think when I first got challenged, well, I was in the box of pictures looking for a picture of my dad because he argues now he's never had long hair, but I've seen pictures of him in law school where he had George Harrison's hair. But I think he's blocked it out of his memory. So I started looking at his box of pictures of certain the proof that he had long hair had to be in there. And I found all these pictures of me with toys when I was a kid, as Snoopy. So I pulled it out to photograph it with the phone. But yeah, that's Snoopy. I love that thing.
I've got some. My mom took some pictures of. I would used to set up like all my GI Joe battles, and she would take pictures of that. I was going to do that and send those to you. I need to see if I still have those.
Um, yeah, it was interesting reflecting on the toys when this challenge. Well, because okay, I got tagged in the first place by Lucas Garrett, our former guest on the
Yeah.
show.
I
And
that yeah, that our recent guest is the one that like instigated this for both of us.
yeah, because obviously, I see his posts on my timeline, and I think he was already posting these things, and then I got tagged in the one, and I'm like, ooh, this could be fun. So, the first post I tagged Brian because I'm like, I got to see what he says, and but yeah, it was fun going through some of these things. I'm looking, and I think I'm a day short on it. I think there's one maybe I didn't post, but I saved and then forgot to post it. But I'm looking through this list, and yeah, I think I like being able to expand on this through the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just kind of a post a picture of it, and I thought doing this with like the backstory of why we chose it and why it was important would really be an interesting podcast. The next one that I chose, I picked. I had a hard time choosing because it was Star Wars. I had to pick something Star Wars, um, and I picked the. Let me see. I picked the snow speeder. I know why it was. The day that I posted that picture, it was the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. So I
Yep.
had to pick something specifically for Empire Strikes Back. I remember getting that snow speeder for Christmas. I think my grandma gave that to me. I remember having a lot of fun with that. I loved how it lit up and the sounds that it made. I think if it hadn't been the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, what I would have chosen would be the set of the figures from Star Wars. Remember the kind of they're rare as hell now, but like all of the figures came in one set.
Oh, okay. Um,
My dad got that for me. He was I think he had to get a rain check on it because they were so popular. But I had
so
one of those rare sets of full figures, so I had like the full set of figures for
yeah,
Star
because
Wars first came
I
out.
think I think the initial toy line for Star Wars, because at the time that movie came out, hit huge. There was no merchandise for it. Nobody had time, and then all of a sudden there was this huge demand to make because nobody expected Star Wars to be anything. The studio was like, "This is gonna fail horribly,"
I think
and
Alec Guinness did because Alec Guinness, in lieu of payment, he decided to take a percentage of the merchandising as payment.
no, yeah, no. Some of the people on set did. I do remember. I think an interview with Mark Hamill. He said he didn't know if it'd be popular, but he knew that he was making something special. And well, George Lucas, the guy had to have known he had something going, despite the fact that Fox, the studio that was funding it, despite the fact that they didn't know what to make of it, they didn't understand it, they hated the script, and it was one guy, um, it was Charles Lippincott, who was he was on the board at Fox at the time, and he was championing it. And that Charles Lippincott, he just died last week, and
I
yeah,
know
he was
for some reason,
he
but
was ba- What's up?
I was going to say I know that name for some reason, but I can't place it.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, there were a lot of posts about this. Yeah, I think it was last week that he died. There were a lot of tribute posts to him, but yeah, he was basically the guy yeah, I think he was the marketing guy at Fox. It's like, stick with this, stick with it. This is going to be something. And then the movie came out, there were no toys, and yeah, and then they got him out the next year. But I think I've seen pictures of that because the first set of figures from Star Wars, there were 12 figures, which is why on the back of the card there's the 12, and they call it the 12 back card.
Yes.
But I remember all those figures, they got repackaged a bunch of ways during the vintage line, including like there'd be 3 packs, or there'd be a pack with all the rebels, and so you must have had a set with all the first 12 figures in it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I got one of those first sets that had all of them in it.
Well, my next choice, going off of because I had seen Brian's post, where he mentioned it was the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. Well, I mean, of course, Star Wars was going to show up on my list, and yes, I do know when the release dates of all the original trilogy were, but during this quarantine, what I've discovered is sometimes I don't know what day it is, and I certainly don't know what the hell the date is. And so I saw that, I'm like, oh shit! So I had a perfect next choice. So what I did for this was, I think this one was the most personal that I did. A couple years ago, I went to a convention. I waited in line to get Billy D. Williams' autograph on this Star Wars role playing game book I had. And okay, here's the thing for anybody who doesn't follow me on Facebook or is not aware of it. I love Star Wars. I am a lifelong fan of Star Wars. But there is no character more important to me than Lando Calrissian. He is the number one character for me. If basically when anything Star Wars comes up, if it's Han and Chewie related, my first question is always, is Lando included? Because I can't. I'm not really a Han Solo fan on his own. He's fine. I'd like the Solo movie, but he's fine on his own. But for me, all my fandom of Han really comes from his association with Lando and Chewie. So I went to this convention. I got Billy D. Williams' autograph because he's Lando. And in this picture, I set up the page of that book and I put in front of it, showing the autograph that was personalized to me. And I put the vintage Lando Calrissian figure from The Empire Strikes Back, along with the 2000 Power of the Jedi line Lando Calrissian. It was the first Bespin Lando that had been released in the line since that big, goofy, muscular Power of the Force figure. But the Power of the Jedi line in the modern Star Wars line, in my opinion, that particular collection has never been surpassed. Articulation was limited, but it was the first time where the modern Star Wars figures had a shit ton of detail and that they were finally keeping in mind the scale of the characters next to everybody else. It was the first time they had a really tall Chewie figure, and you saw that the Leia figure was much shorter. Finally, if you line these characters up, they were in scale with each other, which was not something that had been done before. In the vintage line, everything was one height, and the early modern Star Wars figures were terrible.
They were.
But in 2000, yes, the year following the Phantom Menace, because actually the Phantom Menace figures were really good. A lot of them set a new standard. Well, the 2000 Power of the Jedi line brought in a bunch of obscure characters that had never gotten figures before, and they also chose to redo some of the early modern stuff and make it much, much better. Well, the Bespin Lando, I mean, he's pre-posed. He doesn't have much articulation, but the detail is great. The likeness to Billy D. Williams was great. And so I put the vintage figure. It's not my Lando from when I was a kid. I don't have it anymore. The Lando that was in that picture was actually purchased for me by Brian's wife when he was out of the country. She went to a convention and he asked me, he texted me, he said, Emily is at a convention. She's buying stuff for me. Is there anything you wanted to look? to look for. And I said, well, yeah, you know what? Solo had just come out in the theaters a couple months before, and I said, you know what? I really have a hankering to get a vintage Han Solo and a vintage Lando. Um, so see if she'll look, and she did, and she found them. And well,
I forgotten about
what's
that.
up?
I had forgotten about that 'cause she was texting both of us at the time.
Yeah, she yeah. So I said, well, yeah, if you can find a Lando and Han that you don't have to. That I said you don't have to barter some of your belongings to afford. And I guess she found the deal. Well, at the same time, she also got Greedo for me. And um, had had that day not been the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back, in which I could set up my special tribute to Lando, my Star Wars entry was going to be Greedo. Greedo is my second favorite Star Wars character. I know he's a joke. I know he's ridiculous. I mean, even as a bounty hunter, he was frankly terrible at his job. The guy never should have kept getting paying jobs from the hut because every time he did, he fucked it up royally. But I love Greedo so much. He's always fascinated me. I know in the original movie,
She won. She's like, I got him a Greedo too. I'm like, oh,
well, and I was happy because I wasn't expecting that. So when it showed up, I was elated because Greedo is also my favorite of the vintage figures. There's one reason that lime green outlandish spacesuit that he's wearing is there's a there's one perfect action figure that's ever been made for Star Wars, and it's vintage Greedo. I love it. It's so doesn't look like the movie character. I don't care. I love it. The Greedo tattoo that's on my back, originally the image that I found online was it was like a caricature, like an artistic cartoony Greedo, but he was wearing the movie costume. But my girlfriend at the time redrew the tattoo to put him in the green jumpsuit with the teal with the teal highlights because that's just what Greedo looks like in my head. So yeah, so he was going to be my choice for it, and then the 40th anniversary of Empire came up, so I'm like, oh no, let's make this truly special. So
I had forgotten that she had picked those figures up for you because I don't remember where I was, and she was texting both of us at the same time.
yeah, yeah. Anybody who's known me they know about the Greedo thing, and I was actually kind of shocked when I opened the box because, well, like I said, I was expecting Han and Lando. I knew she got those for me, but I wasn't expecting Greedo because I I don't think I was aware that my Greedo fandom had actually made a splash, and well, here's the thing. I am the one and only fan in the world of Greedo shooting first.
I was wondering when that was going to.
When that came up, because I saw my friend in high school and we went opening night, Star Wars Special Edition in 1997. We went and we saw it because neither of us had seen the original. We weren't born yet when the original was in theaters. We went and we saw it, and of course, we're all oohing and ahhing about all the new shit that they added. But there was the most controversial change to a Star Wars movie that will ever happen, and I was so fucking happy. And nobody else was. Greedo, his last act at the end of a career of miserable failures, he got one more chance to prove that he was worthy of his, well, perceived reputation. And he pulls his blaster, he shoots, he misses. You know what? He might as well have just turned his head and shot towards the other direction. But
Excuse me.
It was no longer Han just shooting Greedo under the table. I know why people think that's badass, and I don't care because, again, I don't care that much about Han, but I do about Greedo. And Greedo shooting, even if he failed, Greedo just getting one more chance to do something on screen. I was elated. I used to have I had a shirt made 150 years ago that said Greedo shot first on it. I am the only fan who believes in champions Greedo shooting first. And I give no fucks about that. Greedo shot first. He just now they've changed it over the years.
Yeah.
Different versions of different releases have come out. I mean, at first in '97 when he shot, yeah, he was way off. It kind of came out of nowhere. It didn't really fit the scene at all. But and then there was I think the DVD version later they changed it a little bit. So when he shot, he didn't miss by quite so much. I think when the Star Wars Blu-rays came out, they had further refined it. So when Greedo shot, the bolt still missed Han, but they changed it so he moved his head a little bit out of the way. So it kind of the final change to that scene was basically, it basically came off like a landmine in the movie. When Disney Plus premieres, it launches with the Star Wars movies up to that point, I think. And they put A New Hope on there, and people were watching it, and all of a sudden on Facebook started seeing posts about something called McClunky, and it was a picture of Greedo. And what it was, there was one final change to Star Wars made by George Lucas before he sold the company. At the end of that scene, okay, so Greedo makes his threat. Han says, "Over my dead body." Greedo says back, and again, he's speaking Huttese. He says, "That's the idea, Solo." And just before he shoots, he says, "McClunky." Well, I think the Huttese word is, "You're finished." Sebulba says it in episode 1, and yeah, Greedo, yeah, they did this whole shot where they pan up, they give him a close up. He says McClunky, he shoots, he misses, he gets shot. That's the end of Greedo. But Greedo shot first, and he got the last fucking word in. Now, so basically, it came off like a landmine because nobody was expecting it. Everybody thought the Blu-ray editions were the final editions of those movies. And it turns out this was a thing that George had to do. And I swear to God, he was trolling the fans that already hated the change. I swear he was trolling by continuously changing that scene. So,
might be right.
Greedo shot first.
Yeah.
Anyways, next.
That's one of the things we've definitely questions about on previous podcasts. All right, next. Well, it wouldn't be the 80s toy line if I didn't. I think everybody in my age probably had one because it has been one of the longest continuously running toy lines, like as in it has had a presence in retail markets since its inception in U.S. markets to current day, and that is Transformers. I didn't have a lot of Transformers. I watched the cartoon as a kid. I really liked I loved the cartoon as a kid because I would watch G.I. Joe and Transformers every day when I got home from school. But I remember seeing one of the Seekers at Target with my dad one time, and it was Skywarp, and I loved the black and the purple color combination. And Starscream was like the major character for the cartoons. I wasn't reading the comic books at the time. and I didn't care. I didn't want the main character. I wanted Skywarp because he looked awesome. He was in that black and purple color scheme, and it was just fantastic. That was my first Transformer. I know I did have a couple more Transformers over the years. One of the other ones that I had as a kid that I really remember was Swindle. I only had one of the Combaticons, and the Combaticons are like my favorite Transformers thing ever. But I had to pick Starscream because that was my first Transformer. I've since made a custom of him using one of the G.I. Joe Sky Striker 30th anniversary Sky Strikers. It's one of my favorite customs. I made a Wild Weasel pilot to go with it, dressed in purple and black, and it's one of my favorite customs that I've made over the years. And it's all from having that Starscream as a kid.
That of the three Seekers,
Skywarp.
Skywarp
is not Starscream.
No, I knew what you meant. I didn't even know this. I didn't have any of the Seekers. I had a lot of I had a lot of love for the Transformers. I did not have a lot of the figures. I did not have the Seekers. A friend of mine who lives in the house, the house I live in right now, when I was a kid, there was a kid that lived around the corner, who, oddly enough, the house I live in now is the same house, and he still lives around the corner, except that, it's his house now. But he had, like, when we'd come up here to visit, like during the summers, I'd always run over there because he had a shitload of toys that I didn't have, but I wanted. But I'd bring my stuff, and we'd all, so we basically had more stuff. But he had a gym bag like full of like Transformers, and he had all the Seekers. I was fascinated by Skywarp. I mean, I watched the cartoon, but the Seekers in that, they were kind of minimized. It was mostly Starscream, and the other two guys, really, they were just there a lot of times. Well,
they're like the Three Stooges, it seemed like.
Yes, they really, if it wasn't, I don't even know how much screen time Starscream really had. I think it's just...
You got a lot of he's trying to usurp Megatron.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That was most of his thing. He was trying to show up Megatron.
That's where the Combaticons came from in the cartoons. Is he gets exiled to this South Pacific island, and he digs up these World War II vehicles, and he takes some energon from himself and creates the Combaticons to go fight Megatron.
Incidentally, when I became friends with Brian and he mentioned the Combaticons way early on, my memory of the Transformers was real fuzzy, and that was one that I didn't even know. I had no idea what he was talking about. Then I looked it up. I'm like, why don't they ever... Honestly, watching the cartoon, I didn't remember them. I did not remember them at all. But then...
They were only in like maybe 3 episodes, I think.
Maybe that's what it is. The Transformers cartoon was great, but they had a worse problem with having too many characters than the Joe cartoon did. Yeah. There were just so many characters that would show up, and then but I didn't remember them. But yeah, Skywarp was cool. It was the black and the silver and the purple, and there's very few color combinations that are as viscerally cool as that is. So that alone is what set Skywarp apart for me. So good choice on that one. I was totally championing that.
All right. So what's your next one then?
Okay. Hang on one sec. Let me. I'm looking at my list because I can't remember everything. So I gotta.
I've got mine pulled up too because it's like I don't remember what I picked.
Okay, my next choice after that was the Superpowers line. The DC toy line, I think it launched in 83 or 84. And I remember and in fact, the picture that I put up was a picture. I want to say I think it was a photograph from one of the back of the cards. Because early on they just had the basic superheroes and a couple of the villains, but as the line went on, they kept adding more characters. Well, the picture that I put specifically up was the entire line because I hadn't remembered that they had that many damn characters out. Now, a lot of the stuff, the bottom row of the photo basically has, I think it's some of the figures that were either released much later or at the end of the line. I did not have any of them. I don't really know that some of these. I don't think I realized some of these were made. But the first,
looking at that picture, I had no idea that line was that in depth. I did not. I was not a DC. When I was young, the only comic book that I read was G.I. Joe until I got into high school. So I wasn't even. I can't even say I was a Marvel man at the time because I was just straight G.I. Joe.
Well,
so I didn't get any of like the Secret Wars Marvel figures, and I certainly didn't look at any of the those DC figures. So I had no idea that line was that in depth. I knew they had done quite a bit of figures for them, but I had no idea that line was that in depth.
Yeah, when I was, like I said, I think it launched in 83 or 84. So I was around 3 or 4, but I remember because they were familiar characters to everybody in my family, that when birthdays and Christmases came around, I'd always get a couple of them, or I'd get some at the store. And so I think for a little while there, when I wasn't getting G.I. Joes or He-Man, I think it was Superpowers line. But I had, because I look at the first row, and it's everybody from Superman down to Green Arrow. And I absolutely had Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, The Flash, Wonder Woman, Hawkman. I was completely baffled by Hawkman when I was a kid.
Why is that?
I just did not understand. What's with the bird helmet and the flapping wings? And to me, he looked like an angel, but he didn't look like the angels that were in the books that my parents had. So I couldn't. I think it was lost on me that he was supposed to be a bird guy because all I saw was angel wings and a weird face. But I just remember, the wings on the back would flap, and I think that was the most interesting part of it for me. But I had Robin, I had Aquaman. Looking at that first, I had Firestorm. I think the only one of them I didn't have was Green Arrow. But then later on, they came out with some more. The Joker. No, the Joker, the Penguin, Lex Luthor. But I put up a picture of the whole collection because I too was really impressed with the depth that they had gone into. Now, I did watch. There was a cartoon called The Superpowers, but a lot of it I think was recut from when it was the Super Friends in the 70s with the Wonder Twins and all that. Well, the Wonder Twins and those two kids wearing the bell bottoms that were like regular people hanging out with the superheroes. I don't
know. Marvin and Wendy, I think.
Oh, actually, you know what? That sounds right. But the cartoon was on, so I was always watching that. I remember much later, like when I was a teenager, I turned the radio on and they had like the top 40 countdown. And the guy that was on the radio narrating, or kind of
Casey Kasem.
That's what I was getting at. But when I heard it, I heard the voice on the radio. I'm like, wait, that's Robin, because at the time when I was a kid, it was just a really recognizable voice for me.
I had forgot that he had narrated that.
Yes, and he was the voice of Robin. So I heard that. I'm like, wait, that's Robin on the radio. Now, when I was a kid too, the other DC that I had exposure to was the Adam West Batman TV series.
Yeah, I didn't get that when I was in high school.
Yeah, that was always on in reruns. And when I was growing up and we'd come up here to visit, well, some of my family, they'd watch it, and um, I've got an aunt who she's got Down syndrome, but when I was growing up, half the time I'd love coming to visit because her and we'd sit there and we'd watch like Batman. The Adam West show was on TV every day, and they'd play like 3 or 4 episodes, and we'd always just sit there and watch and laugh at it. And I've got a lot of fond memories of it. There was a lot of music she listened to that I'd listen to with her, and we'd watch that Batman TV series. So the super, I think that's where my Batman connection comes in because I had the Batmobile from the Superpowers line, and I know what I saw on the Superpowers TV series, but I always saw Batman as more being the Adam West kind of goofy, pow, zap. I mean, I love that shit. Yeah, I love all that stuff. But yeah, the Superpowers line had all kinds of characters that just they were interesting. They were cool. And my favorite DC villain is a guy from another dimension that hangs out with Darkseid called Steppenwolf. And it's because there was a Steppenwolf figure in the Superpowers line, but I think you had to send away for it, and my dad did the same way he sent away for Duke and Major Blood for me when I was a kid. Well, he sent away to get Steppenwolf for me. So, I mean, he's scary. He's badass looking. He's got like red eyes, and he's got a little bit of crystal ball vibe going on. See, it's a theme, and yeah, it was cool. So yeah, I had to pick the Superpowers line. That had to come up, but I really couldn't narrow it down.
I see, and I think that's fantastic that, like, as much as we like have the same interest, our choices were so diverse.
Yes, I agree.
Which I think is one of the things that one of the reasons that I wanted to do this is because it wasn't you and I picking in things. I think aside from G.I. Joe and Star Wars were the only two things that we picked that were the same. Like for my next pick, I picked I picked a picture because it had both of them in it, and it was they were about this big, so the figures were probably maybe mask size, maybe 2 inches at the time. Was the Battlestar Galactica Cylon Raider and the Battlestar Galactica Viper, and
Yeah.
those came out in the late 70s, early 80s, and there was a little bit of controversy with those.
Oops.
Yeah, because they shot these little red tiny missiles, and they were choking hazards. And I don't remember if there was actually
There was.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think
There was. In the I think it was like 1979. I've seen
78.
Yeah, 78, 79, and yeah, this kid had the ship, and his brother, I think he was using the ship to shoot the missiles at his brother and I think the kid, yeah, I think it got caught in his mouth, and I think he choked to death on it. And for a long time, they took toys off the market that actually fired like. That's why the Boba Fett figure that was the Malaway for The Empire Strikes Back in the sticker ad, the rocket fires, but the one people received didn't because that lawsuit went through and they had to change the engineering because they didn't want the rocket to kill another kid.
It did reissue those Battlestar Galacticas without those missiles, but I had the ones that still shot the missiles.
That's super cool. Yeah, those. See, there's an example of a toy. I've seen Battlestar Galactica. I have seen pictures of those toys. I have never seen one in person ever.
And there are vehicles that were in mind that I didn't. There's like this like it's kind of reminiscent of the Thunderclap, the GI Joe Thunderclap, it's this like big cannon, like long thing. It was never in the TV show that I'm aware of.
The 70s were notorious for repackaging old toys and tying it into franchises that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and I never saw that. I've never seen that in person. I wanted it as a kid because it looked so cool, and I loved the Battlestar Galactica stuff. But by that time, that's when they had started recalling that, and I don't think they reissued that one. So I never saw that. I've never seen them since at anything that I've been at. But I know Dean Schaefer says that he's picked up one or both of those.
What company made the Battlestar stuff? Do you remember?
Well, I couldn't tell you.
Did they make figures for it, or were they just the vehicles? I don't.
No, there were. So it was like they made figures, but they weren't individually packaged. So the figures were really small. I mean, maybe an inch to inch and a half tall. I don't think they were tall. And they had, I want to say they had 3 points of articulation because the arms moved and the legs were together. The legs moved as one piece, so they could vehicles, but they didn't. I think it was just 3 points of articulation on those.
Yeah, because
really tight.
Like I said, I've seen pictures of the vehicles online before, but I think they were always in connection with like that story about the kid that choked on the. Yeah, so I didn't. I don't know of anything else that's in the line. I didn't watch the old Battlestar show until a few years ago. I watched it online, and I got about 12 episodes in. I'm like, you know what? I like this show, but I just don't care that much.
Not that's the time. I remember watching it because I was old enough. I think it came on like right before the Muppet Show. So we would and I think it was Sundays. So I think Saturdays or Sundays. It probably had to have been Saturdays because if it was Sundays, my folks would have been at the Broncos game. So I think it was it came on after the Muppet Show. I can't remember exactly, but I remember watching the Muppet Show and Battlestar Galactica. I've watched some episodes since then, and it did not age well. It's kind of like Buck Rogers. My wife makes me watch that every Saturday, and it is Saturday night, and it's going to be on in about half an hour. So hopefully we're still doing this podcast, so that'll get me out of
Whoops.
Horrible. Holy shit. Aaron Gray is hot, but holy shit, that TV show was shit, and I don't remember it being that bad. I remember loving it. Holy.
Yeah.
Rogers suck.
I remember, because it was last year, the year before I started. Like I said, it was on one of the streaming services. I started watching it, and I remember I was really liking the story of it, but then it just I quit watching it after because I'm just like these villains suck, and I'm just like it was just so ugly to look at. Like it's just so not it's not so the actors right. It's
I mean it is Scream 7. We were watching it maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they had this like choreography dance, and everybody's in roller skates. I mean, it was just
it's
horrible.
I think it was the 70s-ness of it that I got to the point where I'm just like I love Star Trek the original series. Sometimes I can sit down and I can veg out and I can enjoy the living shit out of an episode or two of that. Yes. And sometimes I can sit down and I can't get past the 60s-ness of it.
Yes, absolutely. Agreed. I didn't used to be that way, but I've noticed that I am that way now. So yes, I agree.
If I can get into an episode, I am into it wholly, despite whatever and especially the first few episodes of Battlestar Galactica, despite all the, fluff of it, I still got into it. But by the time they were introducing new villains, I'm just like, these villains suck.
Yeah.
And I just got to the point where I'm just like, the characters weren't really standing out from each other, and I'm just like, eh. So
That's a good.
now I think I understand why the ships are the most memorable part of it, because some of those characters were the main characters were well fleshed out, but all the supporting characters basically had, well, personalities as diverse as, the ships.
Right.
As I mean, some of those characters just, yeah, I think the Viper ships had more personality.
So what'd you go with for your next pick there?
Um, Hang on, the screen keeps going to sleep on the phone. The Let's see, my next choice was Bluegrass from the Silverhawks line. And
Nice.
I picked specifically Bluegrass because I don't know why. Yes, I fucking do. Yes, I do know why. I do not remember anything about the Silverhawks at all. I know what the characters look like because of 80s nostalgia all over the internet. But the only character I specifically remember was Bluegrass, because he's basically he's this intergalactic guy in this chrome blue suit, and he had a mohawk when he took the cowboy hat off, and he played a guitar, and basically he was an intergalactic country music star, and of course that fucking appeals to me. This ain't the first time I've mentioned that streak of red that goes across the back of my neck. And so Bluegrass was always, I don't know, he always just had he always seemed to be the most, what little I can remember about the show, I always felt like he was the down to earth, the like the human one, and everybody else just kind of seemed to be like, well, alien. And yeah, I don't know, something about Bluegrass. So that when I posted it, I took a picture off the no, I I yanked a picture off the internet that somebody took of their Silverhawk or their Bluegrass figure, and that's why I posted, because I'm like, it's like now I can just see, now all I can, ever since 2 years ago when I first saw Smokey and the Bandit. Yes, I was 40 years too late on that one, but I watched it, and all I could think was, um, you know, I want to see. I kept wishing to see like a space movie that was basically Smokey and the Bandit set in space, and then I thought to myself, wait, what if it looked like Silverhawks? I'm like, damn it, I want to see, like, basically I want to see a live action Silverhawk just so they can some with Bluegrass. But it's funny because aside of, I know what the characters look like, I cannot name any of the other characters. I do not. I don't know what the storyline was. I don't know who the Silverhawks actually were. I don't really remember. I
Yeah,
just remember.
myself, and I didn't have any of the Silverhawks as a kid. I remember seeing them in the toy stores. I don't think I knew anybody that had any. I sort of vaguely remember watching the vaguely remember watching the cartoon and liking it and liking the premise and really kind of wanting the Silverhawks. But I think I was kind of a scale whore even then, and I didn't want them because they wouldn't fit with my GI Joe.
um, yeah, because again, the kid that lived around the corner from me, he had a couple of Silverhawks. Because I remember there was the one guy. Basically, his head is kind of shaped like he's got like Elvis hair or something. Like, clearly, he's the cool guy on the team. He's the leader. He's, well, Duke, I guess. But I remember the toy. I think the wings popped out, and when you push and he was, again, chrome toys are always great toys. But yeah, he had him, and it was like a kid Silverhawk. But what?
Copper Kid.
Copper Kid?
Yeah, that's
Wait,
the character.
the name is Copper Kid. Okay. Well, now I'm suddenly seeing a theme with the names bluegrass, copper. Please don't tell me the rest of the names. I don't want to hear it.
I couldn't. I think they were all
Um,
metallic.
okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Hey,
Silverhawk.
um, oh, was the you know what the lead guy's probably his name probably was Silverhawk. I don't. I mean, I remember there was a cartoon. Don't remember if I ever watched it. I mean, it was in that whole time period where we had like the Centurions and
Yes.
the and they had cartoons and I probably watched it, but yeah, I remember I had that bluegrass and I think somebody gave it to me. Maybe I had the toy before I saw that, but yeah, there was
Well, yeah,
something kindred about.
I don't know why I didn't pick Centurions for one of my days.
Huh. Hey, now that you say that, now I don't understand why you didn't either. That's weird.
It is kind of weird.
Um,
All right, so let me go to my next one. So my Battlestar Galactica toys weren't the only controversial toys that I had as a kid. My next one was the um, Intertech AK Centerfire.
oh, yeah.
National fucking news. It was a automatic squirt gun that looked like an assault weapon. I mean, it didn't even have the orange safety cap on the barrel to identify that it was a toy. I mean, this thing looked real.
There's something that absolutely would never, ever, 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 ever be considered to come out. I mean, yeah, wow, that's crazy.
What was my story for this one is, I am so I'm like still in touch with my oldest friend. He grew up just up the street. We've been friends for like 40 years now. He was my vet for a long time. He gave me my first Australian cattle dog.
You've told me about this guy. He was there when you got the roofing shingle in your eye, right? That was it. Yeah, okay.
Roofing shingle. I mean, we've been friends forever. So my mom got this for me, and we would have squirt gun battles every summer. That's like what we would do every summer. Is we would save up money for like the last 2 months of during school, and then like the first day after we got out of school, we'd go down to the local. It was Gibson's and Alco were the like chain retail stores in our little shitty little mountain town, and we would buy just tons and tons and tons of squirt guns, and then we'd have squirt gun battles all summer long. So I wanted the automatic squirt gun, and my mom is like completely anti-gun. I mean, she's like anti-gun everything, and she got this for me. And my buddy, his mom would not get one for him because she was going to get shot by cops with that thing. And to this day, he is still pissed about that because when I posted that, he commented on
that. Well, I have to laugh because, like I knew the story about the guy that you go to as a vet. I knew it was a child friend of yours, but I didn't realize that was him that commented on the picture. So I like having more context for things like that. So, oh yeah, he's still bitter at you. That's funny.
Yeah, I was like, he was so pissed. And what really kind of like turned the knife in it. It was a shitty squirt gun. It shot like 6 feet maybe. It took 4 AA batteries. I mean, I was a strong kid. That thing weighed it. It was heavy. It didn't hold much water. It came with 2 like interchangeable magazines. It didn't much. The straw that went in to drain it didn't drain it fully, so you didn't actually end up squirting all the water out of the gun. It wouldn't squirt very far. It was loud as hell. It was a shitty squirt gun, but like I said, it made national news at the time for what it was. So
That's funny.
yeah, and my buddy at the time was pissed, and 40 years later, he is still miffed about that.
He probably forgot about the trauma of not getting that until you posted that, and I bet he starts therapy next week. Um, um, that's hilarious. Yeah, you mentioned he was the vet. I'm like, oh wait, yeah. Okay, briefly, just mention since I brought it up, the roofing shingle. Just for the morbidly curious.
Yes, for the morbidly curious, my buddy and I, so we lived out in the country even for this shitty mountain town, and they were building a park behind my house, which was like amazing because we would have to go miles into town to go play in a park. And they had just built the pump house on it, and they had just did tar and gravel shingles on the roof, and they'd thrown all the scraps on the ground, and they were triangle shaped. So, of course, as kids, we were throwing them at each other.
And just like you do.
Yeah. I hit him in the back, and he hit me in the eye. And I had emergency eye surgery because it lacerated my eye, and I still have a vision deficit from that to this day.
I'd say, and that's the reason you can't wear contact lenses, right? Like you can't put them on your.
I cannot put my finger. I have a morbid fear of anything that gets close to my eye. I could not. You could give me all the money in the world, and I could not put contacts in.
So, yeah, I just figured we'd give some background on that obscure reference to Brian trivia that I dropped. So, anyways, my next my next entry I put down on Memorial Day. Now, when I did these, I didn't always do them every day in a row. There was a day or two. There were a couple days that I missed just because, like, I had stuff ready to go, but sometimes, like one day, I actually just outright forgot, and one day I was just not feeling it, and I just didn't. But I almost took off Memorial because it was Memorial Day. But instead, what I ended up doing was posting a picture of those little tiny green army men that everybody has had in their lifetime. At some point, I'm pretty sure even families that did not believe in the military or violence, I'm sure those kids probably had green army men. They are so prolific in the life of kids who have toys that they're even characters in the Toy Story movies.
Yes.
All voiced by actors who played soldiers on screen in Hollywood movies, like the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. He voices the sergeant that leads the squad of the Green Army Men. So I thought for Memorial Day, because when I was a kid and I had the Green Army Men, they always looked to me like, World War II, Vietnam era stuff. And you know what? We lost a lot of heroes in those wars. And basically, these Green Army Men portray the jobs that these guys used to do, and they fought and they died and they gave everything to do these jobs. And these little Green Army Men, in some ways, it immortalizes the work that they did.
Absolutely.
And so I thought I couldn't think of anything more appropriate. And it was the only reason that I posted on that day was because I'm like, well, everybody had Green Army Men and these things. I mean, for all I know, the jobs, even family members of mine that were in the military during World War II, maybe they did some of those jobs. I don't know. A lot of them wouldn't talk about it when I was growing up. So if I asked questions, there was a lot of change the subject and a lot of, I know there was a lot of, trauma that went with it. But yeah, those Green Army Men, I think everybody had them.
I had some, and even my dad had some growing up because I remember when I got mine and I had so much fun with them. Even though I already had GI Joes, I would still put those aside and play with the Green Army Men for a while. And I think I was playing with them at my grandma's house, and then she got out the ones she had like two, and I don't know whatever happened to them. I wish I'd been able to hang on to them. They were my dad's, and they were metal.
Oh, whoa! Like diecast metal Green Army Men.
Yes.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I
Yeah.
don't think I ever realized that they came in like other mediums than that cheap plastic.
Yeah, they were metal. I don't know what metal. Back then it's probably lead.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, probably. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I wish I'd been able to. You know, of course, I wish I'd been able to hang on to all of my toys as a kid. I wish I'd been able to, when I'd been done with something, put it in a box and put it away and save it for myself now because I'd like to play with it again. And
Yeah, me too. Instead of donating it, garage selling it,
well,
losing it in the yard, having friends that live down the street from you steal it. Okay, yeah, that's apparently not going away either. Anyways,
so that's like the third
so
talked about that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
one of them was one of the ones that he had was a flamethrower, and I don't remember what the other one was, but I remember the flamethrower, and it was metal.
um, that's kind of cool. Huh? I don't. A couple years ago, as a birthday gift, or I mean, kind of a gag, I guess, but my dad's not big for his birthday. He doesn't really celebrate it. Sometimes he'll say just a happy birthday text is plenty. But every once in a while, my sister and I will decide to actually get him something, and it's always something kind of. It's a little bit kitschy, but it's something we know that he'll appreciate. And like there was this big, found it online, eBay something. It was like a Green Army Man, but it was like 6 or 7 inches tall, and it was basically it was like one of the little ones, but it looks like they just increased, with the mold when they and I mean it was kind of cool. He's just a guy standing there with a rifle in his hand, but I got it because on the mantle of my dad's house there's a copper, and I mean pure copper, statue of. If you go to Fort Benning, Georgia, at one of the gates, there's a or no, the infantry company. There's a statue of a guy named Iron Mike. He's basically charging into battle, arm is up in the air. He's basically leading the men into well, it kind of this pure copper statue that he has. Uh, I always thought it looked lonely, so I bought this big 6 or 7 inch Green Army Man for it, and I said, "Hey, Dad, look, this is the guy that Iron Mike is leading into battle." And he said, well, he's out of uniform. That's my dad's idea of a joke, okay? Which of course I laughed at because it's horrible. But I yeah, so I yeah love those Green Army Men. And even my son went through a stage where he wanted all those little plastic unpainted guys. I had ninjas, I had zombies, I had soldiers, and
Even
I
Marine Task Force has when they did their World War II line, they even have an all green army guy.
really
Dude,
I want one of those. Oh,
yeah,
I want one of those. That's really cool. I didn't realize that is boy. There's a chase variation that I can get behind. Something like that. That's cool.
yeah, no, they've got an all green army guy for the in the World War II line.
That's awesome.
Let's see
So,
what
what
did
was your next entry?
I pick next. Um, well, remember I was telling you that my mom would take pictures of all my like set up because I would like spend all day setting up
Yeah.
battles. Like I'd have just this like I would take over the living room and just all my GI Joe guys, all my Star Wars guys, because eventually the Star Wars guys, some of the guys would join GI Joe and some of the guys would join Cobra, and just spread out everywhere. And like the centerpiece, the like the place to be captured, was one of my favorite toys as a kid, and it was from the Dungeons and Dragons line, and it's the snake shaped head, and it's called the Fortress of Fangs.
Oh, that's the one you talked about on one of our. Yeah, you put a picture up, and I thought, wow, I thought that was awesome. I'm like, that thing put Snake Mountain from the Masters line to shame.
It does. I mean, the bottom level, there's all these stalactites and stalagmites that are the fangs. There's two of them at the front that fold down to cross a bridge that goes over lava, and you go in through that, and there's this chest of gold in the middle, and then there's all kinds of gimmicks on the top level. The tongue comes out of where the nose would be, and it's a ladder. There's this huge dragon thrown at the back. There's a trap door that will drop you down into the lava right in front of the throne. There's you push down in it like a catapult.
Oh yeah, nice.
And it was perfect for Cobra. I had a bunch of the Dungeons and Dragons figures, but man, they never got near that place.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Marcus made one from scratch. He scratch built one recently.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that thing is amazing. But yeah, it was huge. I mean, I looked to see what they were going for, and they're like a couple $100 a piece now. And yeah, it was just a blast. Like I said, never got touched by my Dungeons and Dragons guys. Either Cobra had it, G.I. Joe was trying to kick them off, or G.I. Joe had already captured it, and they were trying to defend it and keep it away from Cobra.
That is so much something I would have done. I mean, I said, when I was a kid, a lot of my toys ended up getting adopted into the G.I. Joe line. But, if you think about it, in the cartoon, the Joe cartoon, Cobra always had new bases. And They were all these crazy, over-the-top, snake-themed things. Like, giant cobra head coming out of the front of this fortress that was buried in the sand. And there's 19 other cobra statues all over all the bases they had. And that, in the toy line, yeah, there was the Terrordrome, but Cobra never got the headquarters playset with outlandish snake statuary on it. So that Fang Fortress, whatever you call it, that is perfect. No wonder you let Cobra use it. That was as close to having a toy of Cobra headquarters as you were going to
get. It was like something straight out of the cartoons, man.
That is fucking cool. Yeah, because I didn't know what it was. Then I saw the picture of it, and I'm just like, oh, man, that is cool. I'm like,
they had so many gimmicks, and none of them were like shit gimmicks.
Yeah, it's not like the easily broken or cool idea but terrible execution gimmick.
Yeah, no, none of the gimmicks were annoying or over the top or stupid. I mean, it's one of the few things that like everything is perfect on it.
That's cool. Yeah, that is super cool. I didn't know what it was when I was a kid, but I'm like, man, that would have been fun to have. So, following that, my next choice was, I'm tired of the screensaver on my phone taking over. I need to change that setting. Okay, after that, my next choice was the Remco Karate Kid line. They were about 5 inches tall. They didn't have a lot of articulation because they all had like karate spring action features in the figures. Well, when I remember those, they came out. Yeah, because let's see, the Karate Kid Part 2 is released in theaters in '86. And that toy line came out around the same time because even though I didn't get to see Karate Kid 2 in the theater, I remember those toys. I had, when you're a kid, even if you don't see that, they had all those storybooks where it'd be a bunch of photos from the movie, and it would basically be a summary of what you saw. Well, I had the story of the Karate Kid 2 in this book, and it had all these photos of all the characters in the. I had already seen the Karate Kid, but I was too. Uh, I don't know. My parents just whatever reason they didn't take me to go see it, but I had. And there was a sticker book that I remember getting at the book fair at school because you give a kid money for books at the book fair. Man, there was nothing cooler than that, I guess, at school. But well, there was a sticker book from the Karate Kid too, so I was very familiar with all the characters. I just didn't have any context for it. But that toy line, it was the first time I ever got figures of Daniel, and I had Chosen, and I had Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi is my favorite movie character of all. Any franchise, none of it. Mr. Miyagi is my number one character. The guy is a life guru for the viewer as well as he is for Daniel-san, and later as well as he tried to be for Julie in that Misfit Next Karate Kid movie. But every line of dialogue that Pat Morita delivers in those, it's memorable, it's classic, and it fucking teaches a lesson. My very favorite being when he says, walk to the side, walk to the left, walk to the right, just fine, walk in the center, squish like grape. And I'm like, it's true. If you, people that just, you got to live a crazy lifestyle, well, it gets bad sometimes. But he was talking in terms of little rivalry that Daniel had going with the Cobra Kais, but he's basically saying just let things pass you by and you're fine. Well, so all these little wisdom things, and I love the portrayal. I've seen the audition tapes that he had, that Pat Morita did to get the part, and he fakes this accent. He creates basically this character for the audition. The studio did not want Pat Morita because he was a stand-up comedian. He was the funny guy from Happy Days. He was
from Happy Days.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was Arnold, and the people that were at the studio that were making the Karate Kid, they didn't see it. They couldn't understand why they get a comedian in there. And then he does this, and he puts on this accent, and he starts delivering this dialogue, and he went from being the guy they didn't want to being the only choice for the role. And because the guy is so fucking genuine in this part, every time he's on the screen, I not only believe that he is the character, but I also believe that this character might as well have been a real person for as genuine as he is. And he
nailed that role.
He did. He absolutely, not only is there nobody else that I can see in that role, because he basically created the portrayal himself, it was like I feel like he was just born to play that role. And as a franchise, I absolutely love the Karate Kid. The entire trilogy, plus the next Karate Kid. I love them. I'm a massive fan of Cobra Kai on YouTube, which is the streaming television sequel to the Karate Kid movies. And Mr. Miyagi, Pat Morita died in 2005. In the continuity of Cobra Kai, I think the character was supposed to have died just a few years ago now, but obviously he can't make an appearance, but there's lots of flashbacks to him, and it's great. Yeah, Mr. Miyagi he's like a life coach on screen, and he's funny. Every time he'd humiliate Daniel, I'm sorry, it's just funny. But yeah, that Remco line, like I said, it didn't have much articulation. It had these goofy action features, but they really reflected what I was fascinated by looking at these books. And then I didn't, now just a storybook and the toy, I didn't realize that Chosen was basically, an irredeemable bad guy. in the movie. I didn't realize just what a horrible person uh, he was. How
I
sick.
can't remember about the second. I can't remember anything about the second movie.
Well, I can, but that's only because I watch the trilogy yearly, at least once, sometimes more. I was rewatching The Karate Kid again, or The Karate Kid 2 again a couple months ago, and I'm just like, it really, um, The Karate Kid is an infinitely memorable movie. I don't think there's a person alive that isn't that hasn't seen it at least.
Yeah.
But it stands up to me. It's timeless. I don't care when it was made. I don't care how outdated any of it is. The whole damn thing is timeless, and I love the entire trilogy. I mean, again, Next Karate Kid, it's fine. It's on its own. But the trilogy, people laugh off the third one especially, but I don't see why. I know it's a little over the top, but the Karate Kid 2, it's Miyagi's origin story. All we get of it in the first movie is he's got a scene where he's he's mourning the loss of his wife and newborn child in an internment camp while he was fighting for the United States um, in World War II. And there's a newspaper clipping, and you realize he's drunk in this scene because he can't take it. He's missing his family. They've been gone for, see, it was 84, so at that point they'd still been gone for like 40 years, and he's celebrating and mourning, and that was a scene that it got Pat Morita nominated for a supporting Academy Award. I mean, he didn't win, but it's what got it nominated. But the people at the studio, they wanted it cut. They thought it slowed the movie down too much, and they wanted it cut out. Well, they didn't. They kept it. They said, well, no, it has to be in there. Well, that's all we got of his origin story. Karate Kid 2, he takes Daniel back to Okinawa with him, and Daniel goes on this life journey while he's there, learning a lot about his mentor and himself. And the bad guys that he fights is the nephew of Miyagi's old rival. But this nephew, he's always screaming about Daniel's dishonored him or whatever, but he's a horrible person. He's just I don't know, like he's a con man, and he's just bitter, and he's angry, and he's really violent. And so I remember getting that toy thinking, oh, Chozen must be really cool. Reading him in the story, and the story waters it down. Then I remember watching the movie and just being shocked by how awful this guy was. I'm just like, wow. So, hey, the toy is still cool, but now Chozen's a great villain. I'm hoping they bring him into Cobra Kai at some point. They brought other characters back. But yeah, that toy line was really cool. And I went looking just to see if I could get some again. You know what? If they're in good condition, they're expensive. And if they're in bad condition, they are wretched. So
really,
yeah. But yeah, I had to post it. And after I made that post, I shared it in a Cobra Kai group that I'm in because, yeah, it was just, yeah, I did. Well, specifically, I looked up Mr. Miyagi, and I'm like, for a decent one, I'm like, nah. But yeah, I love that character so much. So that post was as much about the movies as it was the toys.
Understandable. For my next one, I didn't have a lot of the toys from this line, but I absolutely loved the cartoons, and I loved this, and it's not one that you like, which I still baffles me, and that's Mask. I picked the Raven because I think it was one of the few that I had. It was a black Corvette. The hood flipped over that had reverse skull wing doors. the tail popped out and it was an engine. It was pretty cool. But then after I posted it, I remembered that I also had a vehicle called Empire, and it was a motorcycle that turned into a plane that I liked.
Yeah, because that's practical. Pretty sure that that plane would not be flight worthy if it was a motorcycle a minute later.
Yeah. But I really loved the premise of the toys. I mean, it was kind of like G.I. Joe meets Transformers for me. It was, it was like transforming toys. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it.
No, I get it. No, you feel like if we'd gotten a crossover episode of the cartoon, well, actually, there was that episode of Transformers where some of them got turned into humans.
Yes.
You feel like if the G.I. Joes, the actual G.I. Joe characters, had ever guested on Transformers, okay, Cobra Commander did that.
Yes.
I keep making my own point here, but you're saying that you looked at the toys like they were the vehicles like the Transformers and the humans were like the Joes. And yeah, see, that's why I don't understand why I can't wrap my mind around it, but I just don't give a shit about that.
Yeah, and it's like this would have been like a special branch of G.I. Joe to have these covert vehicles that transform into militarized weaponized vehicles. And I really liked the cartoon kid too. I mean, I don't know that the cartoon stood up to the test of time. I was going to start watching it again, and I watched the first episode, or started to watch the first episode, and then got interrupted and just haven't gotten back to it. So and I think I was starting the day I posted this, and I just didn't get a chance to go back to it. So I can't really say the cartoon has stood up to test of time. This is a highly collectible line. There was some of the latter stuff didn't see a wider release, so I know some of that's extremely rare to get. There's a customizer that that builds his own toys, and they are just amazing. He built the transport plane for the Mask team, because you got Mask versus Venom, and see, that's why, I mean, the bad guy for the lead bad guy, Miles Mayhem, is would be easily a brother or cousin to Cobra Commander. I mean, it's really close. The parallels are really close. But I mean, he built the transport plane for the good guys. He's got this semi rig that transforms into a command center. The customs are just amazing. I think one of the reasons I really didn't get further into this line again was the scale. They weren't compatible with Joe's.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember I saw that post and I looked and oh, look, it's a Mask vehicle, one that I don't recognize, don't remember. And then I looked it up. I looked up a thing. I'm like, yeah, see, Mask, nifty idea, but Transformers for me is about the characters. And I think if those transforming vehicles actually were characters on Mask, maybe it would have, but they were like equipment. They were just whatever. Yeah, I tried. I mean, a couple years ago, I even tried. I looked into it, but I'm just no, it really just doesn't hold any appeal for me. And I get why it does for everybody else. I guess I'm just
I mean, if I knew what to do with it, would definitely be. I would definitely be a completist, and I would go back and I would get all of the. Maybe not all of, because they had a lot of smaller sets. So I don't know that I would get some of the smaller sets, and some of the figures came in just 2 figures to a pack, and the figures were not particularly. I mean, they were 2-inch figures, so I mean they weren't very well articulated. There wasn't very much detail to them. So I mean they weren't fantastic by any stretch of the imagination, but the vehicles were just extremely fun to play with. So if I had more money than I knew what to do with, I wouldn't be a completist, and I'd go because I know I had the Raven, and there's a story behind that, and I ain't gonna tell that one, not on a podcast. And then I remember having the Vampire, and then I think I traded with a buddy of mine for the Thunderhawk, which was the vehicle for the lead guy. But there was, I'm still highly in love with that line. I still love it to this day, and wish I'd had the ones that I still had, the ones I had. Wish I'd had all of them right now, and I certainly wish there was a 3 3/4 inch line, because I would just be in heaven if they made a 3 3/4 inch. I would have everything from that line if they made it. I don't care how much it would cost. I would get, and there's another customizer. Because the first customizer I was talking about, he builds his customs in scale to the original toys, and then there's another customizer who is really, really talented, and he builds his customs to Joe scale, and they are highly accurate. So,
say that kind of skill that impresses the hell out of me.
Yes,
both the ability, like having the talent for it, and the patience for it. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Yeah, scratch built things always fascinate me and always kind of make me jealous that people can pull that stuff off.
Well, see, these aren't scratch built. He's taken stuff that's pre-existing and modified it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's engineering it. He's putting shit that doesn't belong together, and so yeah, he's not scratch building it, but he is basically making something completely. Yeah, and kit bashing. I've tried it. It's not an easy thing to do, but in order to be so good at it that you can kit bash an accurate version of something that was made before, that's awesome. That kind of talent, I wish that I had it, but wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and one of the pieces that he's done. So the name of the vehicle is Rhino, and it's a 18-wheeler semi, and the sleeper cab, the top folds open. There's a huge mortar in it. Part of it folds down, and the grill comes out as a bumper, and the smokestacks come down as laser guns. He's got it all in there. I mean, he's got all of the action features that were in the original toy built into this custom, and it is spot on accurate. I mean, he got the colors right. I think he must have custom printed decals somehow, because upscaled the decals, because he's got the decals on there.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Beautiful, just beautiful piece. And he did the Gator, which was a Jeep that turned into a boat.
See, I kind of like that idea. The motorcycle into the plane thing, that's really stupid. But a thing turning into a boat, the Jeep, okay, I can get behind that. Like, that's some James Bond stuff. I kind of like it.
Yes. Right. So, yeah, mask, I still don't understand why you don't appreciate it, but, no accounting for lack of taste.
Hey, I don't understand why I don't appreciate it either, because all the elements are there, but yeah, the whole just there, I guess. Oh, by the way, I had to go downstairs, took my hat off, can't remember where I put it, so I had to change the hat. I put it down. I don't know where I left it at. So my next choice was Hordak from the Masters of the Universe line, although technically it was She-Ra, the Princess of Power line.
Oh, that's
where Hordak. Yeah, because it was Hordak and his and his army, the Horde. He-Man takes place on Eternia,
Right.
where he's the prince, he's royalty, but it's on Eternia. Well, when she was a baby, his twin sister Adora was kidnapped. Different versions of it, but she was taken to the neighboring planet Etheria, and Horde. The Horde army subjugated Etheria, and She-Ra was like the soldier that fought against the Horde. Yeah. So her and the Army of Light or something, I can't remember, but they'd fight against the Horde. Well, Hordak, the guy in charge of the Horde, for me was fascinating. Every time I see one of those collages that people draw where it's got like Megatron and Skeletor and Cobra Commander and the 80s villains, every time I see that, I'm like, how come nobody ever draws one that has Galvatron, Hordak, and Serpentor? I'm like, what? Why is it that I always prefer the secondary, later introduced lead villain than I am the original? I have nothing against Skeletor. All right, yeah, he's kind of a joke in the cartoon, more than a little bit of a joke in the cartoon, but it's memorable, so it's funny. But even when I was a kid, I don't know, he was there, he was kind of a moron, and then the Hordak, or the She-Ra cartoon came on, and Hordak is introduced, and I'm just like, my mind was blown. I'm like, this guy is like an intergalactic space vampire, scary as all get out looking, and the whole Horde was filled with, like, there were troopers and army builders, I guess, but he had his generals and stuff. Now, they weren't necessarily as interesting as Skeletor's crew. Beastman's one of my favorite characters. But the Horde didn't have so much. Grizzlor's kind of cool. He's like furry, general guy. I guess the figure was actually had the flock terror, so that's what I remember. But Hordak himself, he was just he wasn't nearly as over the top as Skeletor. Yeah, he got foiled a lot. That's how the cartoons go. But
yeah,
he was so much scarier than Skeletor was scary in the original paintings, like off the packaging and whatever. But not on the cartoon. But Hordak, even though he wasn't terrifying, he was just so much more intimidating to me. Like, I just look at him and I'm just like, that is creepy. And as I got older, and I did have the Horde. I had a couple of Horde members when I was a kid. I had She-Ra. I had a couple of the princesses. But I did have Hordak, and there was nothing scarier in the line. And that is why, specifically for that post, I picked him, because I think that was the day after I binge watched like
I've seen that. Binge watching She-Ra.
Yeah, and I basically, because the first couple seasons were on Netflix, and I did watch them, but it's been a while. So I started with season 3. No, I started again. I figured, because I knew the show was done, and I think that's why I stopped with season 2, was because I'd get to the end and it'd be done, and then you had to wait like 2 or 3 months for the next. So I stopped watching it until it was done. Well, it's done. So I started watching, so I picked it up with season 3. No, I decided to pick it up wherever Netflix said I left off, and then it'd go back to the beginning. So, I picked it up, and it was right at season 3, episode 1, and I started watching it. Now, Hordak on that show does not have as big a part as he did on the old She-Ra cartoon, but it's because there's a lot of world building, and he doesn't always have to be there. But he's even creepier in this. Like, he's even more. He's literally in the background, and he's got this grand plan for what he wants to do, and the Horde basically keeps people off his case. And I don't know, he's just really, like, instead of just being an intergalactic vampire, he's like a recluse hermit Sauron version of Hordak. He's all like tucked away in the lab, and nobody ever really sees him. And he's just getting He's just slowly getting more. I don't know, like he's becoming more reclusive, but he's becoming more ruthless at the same time. A lot like Sauron first gets influenced by the spirit of Sauron, and he slowly becomes a villain. Well, so that's kind of how they did it. But Hordak, for me, he's just he's cool looking. So that's why I picked him. It was a tribute to the new She-Ra show, which is fantastic. If you haven't, anybody listening to this, if you have not watched it, give it a chance. It is different than the original. Yes, it is. Who cares? Give it a chance. It has so much deep lore, world building in it, and they take it deliberately at a pace, and it tells us overall narrative arc, and it is awesome. If you like the Adventure of the Week stuff from the original better, fine. If you're not giving She-Ra a chance because you don't like the character design because they're different than the original, yes, they are. That's not a bad thing. But I say, if you have not watched Netflix, She-Ra and the Princess of Power, do it. Give it a chance. Watch a few episodes. Watch a season. It's really good. And the Hordak is awesome.
So, right, for me, Masters of the Universe is my mask. All the elements are there.
Aha, I see. Okay.
All of the elements are there. There is a lot of cool characters. Like you said, there's a lot of cool world building in the whole Masters of the Universe line. I mean, it's very, very sword and sorcery. All stuff I like. I don't like Masters of the Universe.
That's okay. I
never enjoyed the cartoon. I didn't like the figures as a kid. I never had one of the figures as a kid. I thought the proportions were wonky.
They were.
I tried to get into it. Marcus is really into it. I tried to when he came out to visit. I tried to get into it then. It does nothing for me. I felt so for all of the Masters of the Universe fans when Matty Collector had the license and they had people over a barrel and were just raping them and screwing them out of figures. And I was like, man, I feel so bad for those collectors, and I am so glad I'm not a Masters of the Universe collector because I'd be one of those suckers right now. And I felt so bad for those guys, and there is no appeal to me. I like the looks of Skeletor. I've made my own custom Skeletor figure from boss fight parts, and I like Teela for reasons that I can't explain.
I have a few ideas why Teela is on your list because, she's Teela. I think she's on, most kids, so yeah, so, female assets.
Know that there's going to be a new Masters of the Universe line coming out. I'm like, I might finally break down and would you go away with that? I just will not go away. So I thought I would finally get, might break down and get a Teela figure finally, just to like scratch that itch that I have that I don't know why. And on the last episode with Grogan, I need to send him my address because he said that he's got a part for me that I can make my own. because that was one of the things I wanted to do is make a custom.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I've got to tell you, I don't know why I don't like it, but it is my version of Mask. There's just I can't get into it. I don't enjoy it. I don't know. It's just that, like, no explanation. There's no reason that I should like it, but I don't.
Yep, like you said, all the elements are there. Why the hell isn't it coming together for me?
Yep. I love how Castle Grayskull looks. I love how Snake Mountain looks. I just learned last year what the Eternity playset is and how rare it is. So every time I see somebody post one, I'm like, oh, that's the Eternity playset. And that they all interlink, all 3 playsets interlink is fantastic.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all 3 of them interlink. And then there's, like, add-ons. Like, one of the, like, Falcon planes has an add-on for Castle Grayskull. And, I mean, it's a fantastic toy line. I love how diverse the characters are. I love
and the other dogs in the background.
Chilling out in the chair.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of them is that one is trying to wake up the other one, I bet.
He's just back there chilling, and the puppy's got to play with her squeak.
Oh, wait.
He's like, I'm done.
Oh. Well,
sister goes after her. So, but I like I said, I think that this is one toy line where the gimmicks like actually worked with the very well.
Yeah.
Because each one had a different gimmick, and that, you know, like no 2 toys were alike. I think that's fantastic, but it just does nothing for me. Never
that's funny.
Did. I know I never had any of the figures. I think my mom asked me if I ever wanted any. No, I don't want any of those.
That's funny. Yeah, there were lots of characters that I had, and I knew lots of kids, all the kids my age. We all used them. We all played with them. I had a bunch of the Masters figures. And like I said, She-Ra came out later, but I had a couple of they weren't really compatible. They were more dolls than figures, but I had a couple of those. But there were certain characters that really called to me, and even they still do, some of these certain characters. And then there's a lot of them that I can really take or leave. There's no real, with Masters of the Universe, I either really like a character, really struck by it, or it's just kind of there. There's very few characters I actually dislike, but I get it. I don't have all the passion for it I do for Joe, but I have to. It's ironic that you can't figure out why I don't like Mask, and I get that you like the recipe of Masters, but you can't really, and you can't really get into it, and I understand that. Because I keep you and other people, they talk about Mask, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Why don't I like this?
Right?
It's like it's so.
It's like, don't understand why I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm like, I look at Mask. I told Sean, when Sean was on the show with us, the IDW crossover, I read it. There was a bunch of Mask characters. No, I didn't read all of it. Read some of it, but there was a bunch of Mask characters in there, and I looked at the toy line, and I'm just like, what the fuck? The vehicles, all right. I'm not crazy about the gimmick, but
for the IDW, we've done the whole thing. The IDW Mask is not the same as the original.
No, I know, but I still, like I said, I looked into the original toys, and I read the comic, and I know it's different, but again, no, it's different the same way new She-Ra is different from old She-Ra. It's different, but it should all contribute to the same spirit of the property.
Agreed.
And that is, so new Mask, yeah, it's not classic Mask, but as long as it feels like Mask for the fans, I guess. But yeah, I read it, and I'm just like, And I did watch one episode of the cartoon, or it was on YouTube, and I'm just like, but then that also suffers from the other thing where I think Transformers and G.I. Joe, because I grew up watching them, in my opinion, they still stand up and they do not annoy me. Just about every other cartoon that I have tried to rewatch as an adult, even if a lot of the times I can't so much enjoy it because there'll be something about it that just annoys me, and I can't. I found Cops, the cartoon. I found it on Tubi last week, and I started watching it, and I got like 2 episodes in. I'm just like, the voices are kind of irritating, and the villains aren't as cool as I remembered, except for Buttons McBoom Boom. But a lot of the other cartoons of the time, they don't stand up at all. And so I don't know. Maybe Mask, when I watch it, maybe I was falling into the same.
I don't know.
But
like I said, I tried to watch the first episode and I got interrupted. I'm like, no, I'm not sure this is really going to stand up to the test of time. I need to prove that fact to myself by watching more episodes. But I got to take this opportunity to remind you to, when you're looking for cartoons to watch, to start watching Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes. Oh, yeah. In fact, I did. I put a bunch of episodes that I found on YouTube. Like, I put them in the watch later.
Yeah.
So I couldn't forget. But yeah, sometimes I do. I mean, I put it in the watch so I don't lose track of it. But sometimes I don't remember to go back and watch it. But yeah, I should start. In fact, maybe I'll start that tomorrow.
Yeah, because I think that's one that you'll like.
Yeah.
For my next one, another one. It almost seemed like a knockoff of another existing toy line. There was a cartoon. It wasn't as good. There was a toy. The cartoon was not as good as the other cartoon. The toy line was not as good as the other toy line, and that's GoBots.
Yeah.
I had one GoBot, and that was Vitor, and it was this little red and black plane. It had like four, you folded the arms in, you pushed the legs in, and you folded the wings down. I mean, it really was nothing for transforming, and compared to Transformers at that time, let alone now. But I loved that plane for some reason. I don't know what it was. I remember having that. We lived in this little shitty mountain town, and I remember going up to, like, when we would drive up to like the bigger towns, I remember flying that plane like the whole way up in the back seat of the car, flying that one. It was not a very impressive toy, but I remember having a lot of fun with that particular one. And that's the only one I had of GoBots. I remember it seemed like a knockoff of Transformers. And as much as I like knockoff stuff, man,
Well, I think it's still kind of seen that way too. Like, I don't hear a lot of great nostalgia for GoBots or people that want to give GoBots a new chance. A lot of them say, yeah, they liked it when they were kids, but even they too just felt like it was like, bootleg, a bootlegging of the idea of the Transformers in the first place. I too had one GoBot when I was a kid, just one. It was Psykill. I guess I think he's the lead villain. He's the motorcycle but I did not have the Psykill that the regular toy, the one everybody thinks of. There was like a black and green repaint of it, and I think it was a little smaller. It was like a different scale. And I had that.
Okay.
And I found it. It was like all by itself in the store one day, and it was the same. But I remember I had never seen the cartoon, but I picked it up. I'm like, this is kind of cool looking. After that, I saw the cartoon, and I realized that it was the same character, and I liked it better than the one I was looking at on the screen. Kind of like how Night Force Crazy Legs is much cooler than Crazy Legs. But yeah, I had one GoBot, but I saw the cartoon, and I didn't care. It wasn't really. And then I saw the toys in the like a regular store, not being impressed. I mean, I didn't have a shitload of Transformers anyways. I had, you know, I loved it. Didn't have a lot of them, but I don't remember GoBots being at all interesting.
No. And I don't know why I even had that one, but I just remember having a lot of fun with it. So that's why I threw that in there. I should have put Centurions in that spot.
No, but I like the idea of the GoBot one because you have fond memories of it. You don't know where it came from, who gave it to you. I'm willing to bet at some point when you were a kid, you had a birthday party and kids came over that you knew, and sometimes the parents didn't always know what to get the kid. So
no.
maybe
no, too small of a town. Didn't have birthday parties like that.
Huh? Weird. Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty sure my dad probably got it. My dad got most of it for me. So.
Oh, I was gonna say, or was it maybe something that you found someplace? You know, I remember in 5th grade, I found the Battle Force 2000 Avalanche figure. I found it on the playground at school on a weekend. We went over there, and it was just this abandoned Avalanche figure. So I could have found it.
Did have a figure or two that were found, but I don't. That was one of them. I don't remember getting it, but yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it just it was not a particularly exciting figure or particularly exciting line or even a particularly exciting cartoon, but yeah, I should have used that spot for Centurions because that one I'm still a big fan of Centurions.
Well, my little green and black side kill figure, I had no memory of that at all until you started talking and you said you only had the one. Otherwise, yeah, I don't think I would have remembered it at all. It was buried in my memory.
Which is kind of that because I was running out of stuff to pick at this point in time, and I'm like,
you just forgot about the Centurion. It happened.
Yeah, well, I had forgotten that I'd had a GoBot, and I don't remember how I came across the fact that I had just this one GoBot, and that's like, oh yeah, this one GoBot. I remember having a lot of fun with it, so that's why I put it in there. But man, it completely blanked out until I was looking for stuff because I didn't want to. Like I said, I was building up number one, so I didn't want to hit that one just yet. So I had to put something else. So would you go with it for your next one?
Okay. It turns out there was a day this was supposed to be like 10 toy lines for 10 days. Well, I realized going through my timeline, I had the picture saved for the last one, but I didn't actually post it, so I have to get there. The last one I actually posted that anybody would have seen is there's a shot of the Star Trek, the original series crew in the box set that they made from Playmates Toys, where they had this super expansive line of Star Trek toys back in the 90s. They started with TNG, then they did Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and they did some original series characters a little later, but
they started. Emily has a bunch of those autographed by the actors.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, that's awesome.
She's got a Geordi. She's got a Wesley. She's got a Riker that's autographed, and Barkley.
Wow, yeah. I'm jealous of that actually.
It seems like a Q. I think. Well, no, she didn't get a Q autograph. She had him autograph a book, and a Data. She's got a Data autograph too. Just as an aside, Brett Spiner's a dick.
What?
Brett Spiner's a dick.
Oh, yeah, I've heard. And well, you know what? And outside of Data, I don't like the guy as an actor. I always feel like he plays the parts in it. His voice is too regular. He drives me nuts. Aside of Data, and sometimes even Data episodes annoy the crap out of me. His expanded role in the movies annoys the crap out of me.
But John DeLeon's Q, amazing, meaty person, phenomenal.
That's what I've heard. I've heard he's personable and he'll talk to anybody about anything. I've heard the same thing about Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah, Jonathan Frakes. He came out. We were waiting in an autograph line for him. He was running a little late. Instead of coming out the door, he should have come out. He came out behind everybody and he yelled at the like top of his lungs. He was like, "Where's this Jonathan Frakes asshole?" And everybody starts clapping.
Oh, that's funny.
Will Wheaton was really cool in person. When Emily got her LeVar Burton, the LeVar Burton, she said I had to get a Geordie LaForge figure because I couldn't find a Reading Rainbow figure. He's like, "Oh, remember Reading Rainbow?"
Yep, I agree. Oh, I grew up on Reading Rainbow. When I
just ecstatic that she remembered Reading Rainbow.
Well, my buddy that was on the show, he started me on Star Trek. I remember when I was watching it, I saw Geordie LaForge, and he was the only actor I recognized from anything else, and it was Reading Rainbow. I mean, yes, I was in high school when he took me to see he talked me into going to see Generations with him, but unlike I walked out a fan, but he was the only person in that movie that I recognized, and because of Reading Rainbow.
So I'm sorry, you were saying about Playmates.
No, that's okay, because what I ended up, there were so many toys that they put out in this time.
Yeah, it was huge.
Right after, I mean, basically, right after my friend and I went to see the movie that turned me into a fan, Generations the toy line was in there, but they had a bunch of other. So I mean, I started with those because they were, but but it was running concurrently with the rest of the TNG Deep Space Nine lines. Yeah, because Voyager wasn't there yet. It was about to be, but it wasn't there yet. And I just remember immediately I got, I think, Data and Geordi and Picard. No, I got Worf because he quickly became my favorite Star Trek character ever. But they were cool and all, but they were alongside. One day I was in Toys R Us a couple months later after already buying like 40 of those things. Well, there was a box set of the original series crew. It was a cardboard bridge play set.
Okay.
But they called it on the package, it said Classic Star Trek. So they were differentiating it from the rest of the line because it was being showcased. And it was just the 7 main cast members in the Playmates Star Trek style. But there was just something so awe-inspiring about seeing the original Enterprise bridge crew all together in one set, even if you bought nothing else from the line. You had a whole crew right there, ready to display. And plus you got the bridge to go with it. So, but I remember buying that, and it wasn't new when I bought it, but I remember it had the window box at the front, but like maybe it had been dropped or something, but the cellophane was barely still on the box. Honestly, I think I'm more shocked that somebody didn't reach in and yank the figures out of it. But I mean, it was beat to crap, and it was all by itself at Toys R Us. But I had money, and I went and bought it, and I had seen the original series before because, like I said, I was a budding Star Trek fan, so I watched all of it. I watched the movies and whatever, but there was it was getting this set that made me really want to watch more of the original series. So yeah, there was just something. I mean, and even now, I look at the Playmates Star Trek line with the hundreds of characters, maybe roughly.
Yeah.
There's got to be 200 characters, but I mean, I like the style of it. I really like. They're not completely realistic, but they're not cartoony, and they're really cool.
I was gonna
And
say too.
there's a bunch of them that I actually want to own now. In fact, unlike a lot of stuff on the secondary market, they're cheaper than a lot. So
When you were going to say that you said that too, because I was just going to say, if you are looking for a line to collect, if you want something to collect, if you're looking for something to spend money on, the Playmates Star Trek line is the line for you because it is very diverse. There are tons of different figures. They're not particularly hard to find. There are some that will be more difficult, so you still have like thrill of the chase on finding some of the more difficult ones. And they are not particularly expensive.
I mean,
This, if
you know, there's the rare ones. I mean,
scratch, this would be the perfect introductory line for you.
yeah. I mean, the TOS box set, that's not cheap anymore. There were chase figures. There's some later stuff but the first few years of the line, again, where it was TNG and Deep Space Nine,
Yes.
there was already a shitload of characters. But if you want the whole bridge crew, you got the bridge crew. If you want variations on them, you got the variations on them. If you want all the Deep Space Nine's cast, well, they're all there. And then there's a bunch of expansive ones. This is all before, but they look cool as display pieces. They're nice. Like I said, they're not over the top realistic,
No.
but they're cool and they're articulated. And even though a lot of the accessories would come out in these random colors,
Yeah.
and with no uniformity, there was a big variety with the accessories that they did make. Like they're real detailed. Like the gong from Spock's room is included with one of those. Like the chessboard, the 3D chess, or the 3-level chess that Kirk and Spock, figure came with one of those. And yeah, it was like real character specific accessories that I mean, they didn't. It wasn't. I mean, it's a great line, and it's not that. Oh, is that Barkley?
Yeah. So I've just grabbed this off the wall. So yes, this is Lieutenant Barkley. This is my wife's favorite character. It's autographed. Got the little ribbon of where the convention that we were at. And yeah, the figures on the back. You've got Captain Picard as a Romulan, Captain as a Melkonian, Lieutenant Commander Data is a Romulan, Lieutenant Commander LaForge as I can't even pronounce that, but he's like an alien. Hugh Borg, Lieutenant Barkley, Deanna Troy in the 6th season uniform, and Lieutenant Worf in Starfleet rescue outfit. He comes with a bunch of character-specific equipment. He's got a bio card. This is a fantastic line. It's very diverse. If you're any kind of Star Trek fan and looking for cool stuff to collect, it's dusty. The Playmate stuff is fantastic because there is a lot of diversity. There are tons and tons and tons of figures in this line.
There's a lot of one-off characters that rightfully did not deserve to get toys made of them, but the fact that they did make them and they're unique molds that were never used again, it wasn't a cheap line to produce. I mean,
there's not
a lot of these aliens, they're accurate to the show, and they don't look anything like other things. Like,
no, I think this. I don't know that there are any repaints in this line.
There are, but they tend to be Starfleet characters, or they tend to be characters that wear uniforms, like the Klingons. There's lots of Klingons in the line. a lot of them had unique sculpts, but some of them were reused. But you don't see a lot of the aliens didn't get repainted as anything else. Um, I know they're cheap because last year I went on eBay looking for one Star Trek figure in particular, but I fell down a rabbit hole looking through them,
I'll bet
and I found a nut. Um, I didn't end up buying the one that I went on there looking for because I found a Nausicaan. You've never watched Star Trek: The Next Generation. You don't know what a Nausicaan is. They're in one episode
yes.
of TNG. They showed up later in Enterprise, but they're in one episode of TNG. It's an episode where Hugh comes and he gives a flashback to Picard. He shows what the future would have been had Picard not done the dumbest thing he could have ever done when he's in Starfleet Academy. He's involved in a fight with the Nausicaans, and the Nausicaans stab him in the back. It goes through his heart. He's got, from the rest of that time, they save him by giving him an artificial heart. And this one-off alien from this episode, I mean, they're big, dumb, clod characters. They're thugs. They're conning people out of gambling money. And I specifically remember they're bullying the Starfleet kids, saying humans play Domjot, and and then they go after somebody, and Picard gets pissed, gets in between them, and he gets stabbed or something. But they made a figure of it, and I got it off eBay because I didn't realize how cheap some of those were, and I'm like, this thing's like $5 plus shipping. What? I couldn't when I was buying that line in high school. I couldn't find a Nausicaan. The only place it existed was on the back of that package because I never saw one in the store. Now I'm glad I have one, and now I want to go buy more of those figures. So hey, thanks, General Geekery. Thanks a lot.
Well, I mean, even at like conventions, because I don't remember. I think Barkley was the first figure that Emily got autographed, and she wanted something besides like the traditional promo pictures that they have, for like $10.
Yeah,
I wanted something unique, and at the time, my first convention that I went to, Jeremy Bullock was there. So I wanted something autographed that was Boba Fett, and I ran around the convention really quick, and the only thing I could find was like a Power of the Force Boba Fett. So I bought it and had him autograph it. And he was really cool because they said, no special requests, and I said, I know they said no special requests, but could you please autograph it with your name and then AKA Boba Fett? And he's like, oh, I like that. So, and so that kind of just.
I wonder if he started signing autographs like that after that. I bet he did. I bet he does that now.
He stopped and he's like, I like the sound of that, and autographed it that way for me. And so we were at the convention. This convention, I don't think we've been married too long, and Barkley was there, and it's like her favorite character. And she's like, what do I get? I'm like, get one of the action figures and get it autographed. And at the convention with the actor there, I mean, try this with any other toy line, because any time that you go to a convention that has an actor, anybody that's bringing the toys of that actor, they're going to mark those toys up because they know you're going to buy them to go get them autographed. But this was like 14, 15 years ago almost. And I'm like, get one of those Barkley action figures and get it autographed. And it was like $5 at the convention.
Yeah.
And that just kind of became our standard, thing to get autographed. She had something else autographed by John DeLance, which is a shame because he's one of my favorite characters, and I would have loved to have a Q autographed, but we didn't want to buy 2 autographs. Never at another convention, I will totally get a Q figure autographed. So that's just every every sci-fi convention that we go to that's got a TNG. We just when we know we're going, I'll get one off of eBay because yeah, they're easy to find for the most part, and they're not very expensive.
Yeah, that's cool. Man, especially for some of the later stuff that I never saw in stores. I want to go back and see if that stuff is cheap too. Hmm, interesting. Uh-oh. Rabbit hole coming up. Alert, alert, rabbit hole. I'm going to fall down.
Oh yeah, no, and absolutely, 100% agree. It's a huge rabbit hole on just eBay and just seeing the diversity of this line. I don't
Yeah.
know. There's probably a good resource online for like figure checklist, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
No. Neither can I, because I went looking through and I couldn't really find like a Yojo or like a Rebel Scum version of or Sabertron.com, which is for the Transformer stuff. There's not like a comprehensive, interactive, cool website that archives all the Star Trek figures. There's a lot of really old web pages that basically showcase people's collections.
Yeah.
But some of these are like Angel Fire websites. One of them I looked at, the last update made to the page was in like December 2004 or something. Some of these websites, I mean, there was one that had news about new Star Trek products coming up, and the last thing that it talked about was the like the 6-inch First Contact Star Trek line. There's not. There might be one out there. I couldn't find it. Yeah, nothing that chronicles and shows you in detail all this stuff. No, just a bunch of ancient information superhighway resources.
No, yeah. So, I think we're up to. I think that just about does it for my picks. I have one left, and
yep.
Notice I hadn't talked about it so far, so it has to be G.I. Joe. So that was the biggest line I collected as a kid. I got rid of Star Wars figures, my Star Wars collection, just so I could have more G.I. Joe figures as a kid. I still collect G.I. Joe figures. I just bought a bunch off of eBay the last couple weeks. I've been making customs of G.I. Joe figures for the last couple months. I just today, actually just yesterday, made my first double-sided custom. So the custom card. So it's front and back. I got to show you this. It's cool. Hang on a sec.
Yeah, show the audience because I've already admired it many times. Your patience and your abilities with Photoshop. Yeah, this is awesome.
So I got one of the Marauder figures. It was one of the weekly figures. I decided to do him as version 1 Duke. I picked the art off of picked the V1 art off the card, put my logo instead of the G.I. Joe logo, and then I did the back of the card as well.
Yeah.
So all of the pictures for the figures that are available are pictures of my customs.
Yeah.
The little flag point is a go figure point, and instead of saying save for future offers, it says save for no reason at all.
Nice. I was gonna say, what can I send away for if I
absolutely nothing. Put a lot of little eggs in these. So above the file card where it says clip, normally it says clip and save for G.I. Joe command files. I wrote clip and saved and wish you hadn't later.
Nice.
So this is a template that I got off of Joe Customs. And at the bottom it had said that this is a custom, and it's not. There's no. It's not a Hasbro product, so I changed that to say this is a custom figure and beats the shit out of any known Hasbro product.
Nice.
I changed the UPC to say "Go Figure Custom Action Figure." So I mean, it's got a lot of, and then it said "Made and Printed in the USA." I changed it to "Made" or "Made and Printed in China." I think it said originally. So I changed that to "Made and Printed in Colorado."
Oh, I'm so hoping you were going to say "Made and Printed in the Sovereign Hatchistan."
Oh, should have.
Oh, I fucking love that inside joke you got there. I love that.
Totally changing that on the next batch. Totally changing the Sovereign Hatchistan. So I am
printed at the Sovereign Hatchistan.
That is like I've been carding customs for about 5 years. That is what I have been working up to, is to make a custom figure and card to make it look like it just came off the peg in a toy store. And I think
that is seriously, that is just, dude, I was totally wowed by that. I mean,
it's not perfect. I'm still working out some details. I've got some ideas that I want to try on the next batch. I need to talk to my the people that do my printing for me and see if there's better material that I can use to do and try and do double-sided printing instead of what I'm doing on these. But this is like the culmination of what I've been trying to do for the last 5 years, and I hit it. And I am the Duke is okay, but I'll tell you what, the Shockwave is fantastic. And the Cobra Night Stalker and the female Heat Viper are beautiful. They look like they just came off the peg in a store, and I am super stoked with those.
Well, okay. Now obviously I don't have a wall of carded figures. I open everything I buy. Maybe not right away. Sometimes it might sit in a package for a while to like get around to it, or sometimes I put it away and lose it. But anyways, there's so I don't have anything to display it with, nor would I actually put a figure on it if I had one, because, well, I'd have to open it back up. But dude, I'm so impressed by those custom cards you're making. I wanted to ask if you'd make one for me, like something that I don't even care. They're so cool to just look at. I would end up, because I've got this book series called Making the 3 3/4 inch GI Joe line, by written and put together by Dan Klingensmith, and I love that. And if I had a custom card that you made, I'd probably just put it in one of those books for safekeeping. You know, it would just be part of my. But yeah, that is so cool. I mean, I look at it and I'm just like, yep, that's how cool it was seeing the 25th stuff in 2007 in the line, because you think about how cool it was seeing that package when you were a little kid. So
tell you what,
wild success.
The Firefly. I mean, you just look at it and it's just memories.
Yeah, that. Wild success on the project right now. Yeah, okay, you want to go back and change stuff, but
yeah, number one pick was G.I. Joe. The picture that I put up, I like what you did by just like shotgunning it with a picture from a catalog. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
But I went with Torpedo, since he was my first Joe and my favorite character, and at the time and to this day, still my favorite character. So I put up a picture of a carded V1 Torpedo. It's my number one.
Incidentally, you've made your own version of that card for your custom.
I did, but I don't like how it turned out, because I did it
only because all the gear is blocking Torpedo.
I did like a whole Halo rig for him, and it's like I almost didn't put the rig on the card because just the figure by itself looked really awesome, but then I didn't want
Yeah.
the thing. So I'm probably going to do another torpedo custom at some point in time, and then just um, that was the ultimate torpedo because I made everything removable, everything, all that gear is interchangeable uh, on that figure. Unfortunately, I had to like cut some things apart to get it on the card, but I figured since it's never coming off the card again, no big deal. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm gonna do another torpedo at some point in time just to put it on the card, just so it'll look cool.
Do a Hasbro style.
That was my number one
Do
pick,
the
GI Joe.
when you do your next torpedo, I want to see it in a diving suit because you haven't made that one. Um, but and my last pick back in the mid '80s, there was a WWF wrestling was massive. It
Yeah,
was huge. It was everywhere, and there was a line of I think they were about 8 inches tall. They were rubber. They did not articulate, but they did move. They were all in poses that were specific to the different wrestlers
yeah,
that you'd see. And they were everybody I knew had one or had them or I'd see them out all over the place. Well, I didn't have one, but I knew enough kids that did that I could still play with them. But the one that I didn't have it, but I did want it, and I still want one. Rowdy Roddy Piper. He is the preeminent bad guy who's not really a bad guy. He's just kind of a jerk, but you kind of like him at the same time of wrestling. He's an actor. He did other shit, but Roddy Piper is the preeminent wrestling persona with, hit with Piper's Pit, where he just get these people in there and he just trolled the shit out of them. The other wrestlers, he just trolled them. I mean, he basically just lambasted them, and it's classic. And Roddy Piper is the coolest, likable bad guy in wrestling. And I never had the figure, but a friend of mine did, and it had the kilt. It was actually fabric. The rest of the figure was rubber, but it was awesome. And he had the Hot Rod T-shirt on, and he had that mullet that just
yes.
didn't get any better than Roddy Piper's mullet. So, uh, yeah, I never had that figure. I always wanted it, and I did look it up. And yeah, if you can find them in decent shape, you can't. But if you can, they're not cheap because, well, you can't find them in decent shape. Not really.
Oh, yeah, probably because they didn't age well. If they're rubber, that probably deteriorated over
No.
time.
Yeah, I mean, of the paint and stuff, I mean, it flaked right off even when we were playing with them when we were kids. But I mean, it's just they're cool, but yeah, talk about a thing that wasn't meant to last for 35 years.
Right.
Yeah,
Plus, after he died, anything with him on it just skyrocketed.
that yeah, that's also true. In fact,
Uh,
I can't believe he's
I wasn't a
been
huge
gone this many years.
in the '80s. I knew of it and I watched it occasionally. I loved Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan and Nature Boy Ric Flair and of course Roddy Piper. Because I lived like I said, I lived in a small shitty mountain town. We got our TV was like bootstrapped off the next major town over. So I mean, and that wasn't even a big town. So I mean, we got shit for TV. I mean, we didn't even have cable the first. I mean, they wouldn't even run cable out to our house for the first years because even where we lived, like I said, even where we lived outside of we were out in the country. So I mean,
You had to drive into town to get gas because you couldn't get gas near your house.
yes. Yeah,
Um,
but it's true. And this was just a small mountain town that we lived in. So a lot of the stuff that people grew up on, I wasn't exposed to it because it wasn't there living in the
It didn't exist. There was no market for it, so you didn't see it.
right. I didn't have a lot of close friends growing up because they were all in town. So I was only the three or four guys that lived close, and that wasn't ever an interest for them. So it just never was an interest for me, other than when I find it on TV every once in a while. And then, of course, I saw Andre the Giant in Princess Bride, and
yes,
him. I think he was also, wasn't he in the second Conan movie, Conan the Destroyer?
Yeah, I don't know. I only saw the first one. I've never seen the sequel.
Yeah, the second one wasn't very good, and the third one was Red Sonja, and that one was shit. In fact, I saw a quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger that he says when his kids were growing up and they were bad, when he'd punish them by making them sit down.
Not right. That's not right at all. Yeah, I've never heard anything good about it, but
no, I like literally cried when I read that. He's like, yeah, that movie was so bad. It's like when my kids were bad growing up, I'd punch that movie.
Wow. So, so the videotape release basically is the only thing that stopped him from removing that from his resume. Then there was proof that he'd done it.
Yeah, because I think he said something about that too. He's like, yeah, I wish I could say that I didn't do it, but then there was proof. So
that's funny.
All right, so that was our 10.
Well, hey, wait, let me mention one more. I forgot to publish the Rowdy Roddy Piper thing. I'm going to, when this comes out, I'm going to put a post up that, hey, I'm dumb and I forgot. Plus, I found it frustrating. I tag a bunch of people. You did it. Dean Schaefer did it. Sarah did it. And my buddy Josh did it. And nobody else did. I got likes on it.
Too, but I figured, with all the ones that have been going around on social media, people are just like, it gets overwhelming and people aren't going to do it. And then I wanted to do this one that we were doing, like with the sports. I liked what you were doing, where you like a fake sports hero. So I was going to start doing it because I liked the premise, but then I just forgot about it. And, people forget about it.
That was never going to be a thing for me. I literally I was listening to the Harry Potter audiobook, and they had just mentioned that Newt Scamander was on the Hufflepuff Quidditch team, and like 10 minutes later, I saw that post. I'm like, "Ooh, I got to make a joke." That was the end of that.
And I like,
but yeah,
perfect. So I ran with it, and I did it for I did 3 days with it.
Yeah, I'll say you did Apollo Creed, you did Flash Gordon, and you did that. You did the guy from The Running Man, and no. In fact, I thought, wow. In fact, the third day, I'm like, still doing this?
Yeah.
Wait. I'm like, is he gonna do all 10 days?
I was gonna try. I was gonna pick the gal from the Hunger Games. I don't remember who all I was going to do. But I was like, no, I did 4 because I did, Mom suggested that I do one of the Globetrotter, that I do Meadowlark Lemon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I did that, and that was, I picked, instead of, he was an actual athlete, he wasn't fictional, but
you did the Scooby-Doo version.
I picked a Scooby. Yeah.
But, no, I want to say thanks again, Sarah, Grace, Dean Schaefer, Josh Peck, and Brian Hatch for actually carrying him. I get why people don't. I get tagged and stuff. I don't care. I ignore it. But I just thought it was really cool that they actually did. And they did it all 10 days. And then Josh tagged his sister in it. And then she started doing it. And yeah, it was kind of cool. I've seen it passed on to some people. So yeah,
I thought about
but
tagging people in it.
I'm glad you wanted to do a podcast about it.
Yeah, no, I thought this would be fantastic because it wasn't just, I didn't pick 10 GI Joe guys or 5 GI Joe guys and 5 Star Wars guys. I intentionally tried to pick different toys, and each and every one of them had a story behind it. And I'm like, you know what? This will make a fantastic show. And I think it did.
Well, and when you first brought it up, to add, I'm like, I kept thinking to myself, what more do I have? And I'm like, how much more am I going to come up with to say? And then I just said, well, we'll just see what, and wow, we've talked for a while. That was good.
Yes, I think this was a fantastic episode. So, like, comment, share, subscribe, all those fun social media things that we tell you to do all the time. And then in the comments below, tell us what your favorite toy was growing up as a kid, or pick 10 of your favorite toys and put them on your Facebook page, whatever you want to do. Just comment and tell us what you thought about our picks were. But yeah, tell us what your favorite toys were growing up.
And yes, please do make fun of me for thinking that Rito shot first. I've been listening to that ridicule for years. You can't hurt me. So, yeah.
And
good night, everybody.
If you don't do that, don't worry, because I will always ridicule him for you. So, thanks for watching. Next time, and we'll see you then.